Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Jake Ingledew. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, I'm a real estate investor. I'm a family man and a veteran. And today I'm going to be sharing a video where I interview Andrew Chavez, who was a Special Forces Green Beret that became a successful entrepreneur. So stay tuned, watch this. I think you're going to enjoy it. Andrew, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
I'm pretty excited. It's funny because I already have a relationship with you because I call you all the time like a girlfriend or something. It
Right.
seems like for all my loan advice and investing advice. Um, what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to tell a little bit about your story. So you may be starting with graduating from high school leading into today. And I know a lot of our listeners, especially when we talk about it, are probably going to be excited to hear that, you were in the military, you did special forces. And so I'd like you to highlight a little bit of that. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about your journey and graduating from high school leading up to where you're at today.
Yeah. So, kind of my journey from, graduating high school to being a loan officer and a small business owner today. Well, I graduated from a small high school, Ash Grove, Missouri. I went to college, Missouri State for a year. And I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different than college. So I was like, well, I'm gonna join the military. I'll finish college, while I'm in the military, and I'll get some skills that I can use, when I finish that. That way, I'm drawing a paycheck, but I'm also getting my college paid for. So that was important for me because I didn't come from a family that could just, pay for my college. So I was always looking for a way. Okay, well, if I can't do it through Pell Grants, who else will help me through that? So the Army was kind of my way of, okay, well, they're going to provide me free college. I'll get some on the job, skills that I can use after I finish. I never had a plan of doing 20 years in the military. I didn't want to do anything cool. I didn't want to kick doors in. I didn't want to shoot people or anything like that. I was just like, when I went to the recruiter, I was like, well, I just want to work on computers or something. And he goes, oh, well, do you want to be infantry? They're cool. They jump out of airplanes. I said, no, no, no. He's like, well, you want to be an 18 X-ray? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. He's like, well, it's a special forces guy. I said, no, that doesn't sound cool. Like, I just want to work on computers. So I said, okay, fine. He's like, well, I don't have anything in computers. You want to be artillery? I said, no, no, don't want to be artillery. I'm going to go talk to the Air Force. And so, I never went and talked to the Air Force, but, within a couple hours, he calls me back and said, hey, I got a job for a computer repair technician. It's great. You're going to love it, but you got to come in and sign now, using that hard pressured, sales tactics that they were using, because this was when they were really needing people, right? So they were paying big bonuses. People really weren't signing up to go into the Army. So I was like, hey, great. You're going to hand me $18,000, an 18-year-old kid. And then you're going to pay me a salary.
Man,
on
I
top
wish
of
I
that.
got a sign-on bonus.
Yeah. Well, the Air Force is way more selective, and they always have been, because they draw a different pool of job seekers. The Army, it's a little bit tougher sell. You have to, in some jobs, you stay up late and work hard, and the living conditions aren't as great. So yeah, I ended up going to basic training, got out of basic training, and went to my first duty station out in JBLM in Washington State. I didn't really enjoy my job. Fixing computers, doing IT security was fun, and I learned a lot. There's a lot of good networking principles from computer, security to just basic networking that I learned during that job. But I didn't really enjoy it. I had a different imagination of what I thought the Army was prior to joining. I thought it was like, man, everyone's these, killers that are just, super motivated. Then I got there and these kids are out of shape and, eat donuts and drink Dr. Pepper all day, every day. And they're just not motivated,
Yep.
and there's always that one person that's like, pushing them to do something. Where me, I'm going to use one of these canned phrases. Like, I think I'm a self-starter. Like, if you give me a project, a mission, I'm going to go figure out a way to complete that task or complete that mission. So for me, I was very disappointed in my experience. Now, it wasn't all bad. I learned a lot of great things. I actually had probably the best leader that I've ever had came from, my time in the regular Army. But, I was just a little bit, I would say, disgruntled. I didn't like the environment that I was working in because it was just slow. I was just fixing computers. I was, fixing radios on helicopters or whatever. So I met a first Special Forces group guy, Sam, and I was doing Jujitsu at the time, doing Muay Thai, and he would, roll with me, and we would spar and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm in better shape.
You
than
just
this guy.
you just went up in my book just by saying you do jujitsu. I need to get in. I did some jujitsu. I need to get into it again.
I love jujitsu, and I don't want to go, segue off too much, but jujitsu is chess. It's not checkers.
Human
right?
chess.
So yeah, it's human chess, and it's a thinking man's game, and you have to be thinking 2 to 3 moves ahead of someone, which you can apply to jujitsu, you can apply to the business world, you can apply to a lot of different, areas of your life. So I was doing that, and I was working out with him and stuff, and I was just like, well, if I'm in better shape than this guy. I think I'm just as smart as this guy. Like, I could probably be special forces, and he was telling me a little bit about what they do. Hey, we go to foreign lands, we jump out of airplanes, we do a lot of cool stuff. Right. So I said, wow, that's awesome. Okay. Where do I sign up? And he directs me to a special forces recruiter, and I go over there, and, they say, okay, yep, sign here. We'll get you on the next bus or the next flight to selection. So ended up going through selection. It was a lot tougher than I expected, because coming from a computer repair guy, I wasn't the infantryman there, this 82nd, Airborne Division paratrooper going through Special Forces selection. Like, I was in good shape. Don't get me wrong. I could put a ruck on, but I didn't know how to pack a ruck correctly. I didn't know, I mean, I knew enough to get by. I was very low ranking. I was a specialist, which is an E4 in the Army. And I guess I stumbled my way through it. I got selected, and I went into the Q course. The Q course is the Special Forces qualification course, which they say is kind of actually the assessment, because when I went through, it was just a year and a half of just not fun activities. So that is kind of where they selected. Yeah, they just beat you up for a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, it was just a lot of physical fitness. And if guys couldn't cut it, well, you got kicked out. So that was kind of that the hard part. They always say, hey, selection, it was, I think, 4 weeks long. That's the easiest part. Once you get to the qualification course, then you have like the experienced Special Forces instructors that just, they're going to beat you up for a year and a half. So I got through that. I think for my original selection class, there was close to 400 guys that went through in the original selection class. At the time, 2 years later, I was one of 3 guys that made it from that selection class all the way through. Now, that's not to say that there was only 3 of us that graduated, because guys get washed back, they get rolled back. So
right.
There was probably about 30 some guys from that selection class, but there was only 3 of us from that selection class that made it all the way through without washing out, getting rolled back or anything into previous training classes. So I graduate. I'm pumped. I'm a Green Beret, never deployed, but I'm God's gift to Earth. I'm a warrior. Haven't done anything at this point, right?
So you're feeling like a stud, right?
Yeah. Oh, I thought I was a stud. So I ended up from there going and joining the 7th Special Forces Group, which is out of Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. We had responsibilities in South America, Central America, and then Afghanistan. So it was a good mix of mission. I wanted to go there because I wanted to speak Spanish, and I wanted to go to Afghanistan. So they were one of the groups that were heavily deployed to Afghanistan. 7th Group has lost the most soldiers in the war on terror of any Special Forces group.
So you ended up going to Afghanistan?
Yeah, I did 2 combat rotations to Afghanistan during my time in 7th Group.
What years were you over there?
So I was there in April of 2014.
Okay.
I was there from April 2014 to October 2014 during Operation Enduring Freedom, OEF.
Yep.
It was one of the last OEF operations, but I was glad that I got to experience that.
Yeah.
Because after that, the mission changed to Resolute Support Mission, and it was more of an advising and more of an advisor role that the United States took during that time.
Yeah, so, I was actually in Afghanistan. Actually before you, 2011 to 2012 on an OEF mission, and we were a QRF for the listeners. Quick response force.
Right.
So we were responding to the IEDs, or if we got we got mortared in the middle of the night, we were gearing up, going out, find out where it was. And so it was mainly a presence patrol is what we were doing, whether it was foot or vehicle patrols. But so I was over there in 2011, 2012. So.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. And so I got to do the RSM thing. Did a trip to South America, worked in Colombia a little bit. It was pretty cool. I had a great time in the special forces, and it taught me a whole lot.
So I think I misunderstood. So you went in originally as basically some computer comms
Yep.
communication kind of guy.
Yep. I was Geek Squad for the Army.
Okay, and then you switched to a Green Beret.
Correct.
And then did you get into combat controller too?
Yes. So I was also,
sorry, I'm jumping ahead then. Okay.
So, kind of in that time, I got the opportunity to acquire a lot of, skills that the Army said, hey, you're on this team, you need to have these skills. So I got the opportunity to be a joint tactical air controller. So that's pretty much someone that they direct planes in combat. So the Air Force have combat controllers, and that's their main job. Or one of their main jobs, or it was at the time, is they would attach a combat controller to a team, and they would, they would control all the aircraft. They would integrate fires. So I got the opportunity to do that. I went through the Special Operations Terminal Attack Control course. I held a JTAC rating for several years. And I was actually able to do calls in Afghanistan. I was able to perform my JTAC mission in Afghanistan, which was pretty cool. Because, Jake, I know you said you call me all day, every day. Well, there's no really difference between you're on the battlefield, you're answering radio calls left and right, or you have Jake calling you, 3 or 4 times about mortgages. It's just something that, some people might not answer the phone because they get overwhelmed or something. But, for me, coming from, a battlefield, job where it's like, hey, when aircraft
higher pressure,
higher pressure, you have to call them, you have to have an answer for them, right? So, as you're moving through kind of your mental checklist, well, when Jake calls me, I need to know where the status of his loan is, or say Bob Smith or Janet Smith, they call me. So it's the same thing, right? I learned some skills there that, okay, I can handle the 50 to 100 phone calls that I do a day because, hey, I talked on the radio all day.
I was the RTO. I was the radio guy when we were over in Afghanistan too. Like, I hated it, but I was one of the comms guys.
Yeah. So I acquired that skill. The Army also made me a free fall jump master, which pretty much means, I could plan a jump and I was in charge of like high altitude, high opening, or high altitude, low opening jumps. So that was pretty cool. I got to do a couple hundred jumps when I was in the military. Just good experience. My knees don't like it now, but it was definitely something. There's not a whole lot of other feelings than, standing at the back of a C-130 airplane at 20,000 feet or 15,000 feet. But, some of those higher jumps where you're on oxygen, you have a 100-pound rucksack between your legs, and it's night, and you're looking through these little green, night, vision goggles, like, okay, well, I'm jumping out into the world from, 20,000 feet. So it teaches you a lot. I mean,
I bet that's quite the adrenaline rush.
It is. After a while, though, what I kind of found is the adrenaline kind of wears off, right? My first jump, I barely remember it, right? When I was in the training school, because it was just like, it happened so fast. So I was just like, that was awesome. But then after that, it kind of slows down for you. And I think that kind of happens in any industry, that first couple times you start, repeating the same thing over and over. It happens really fast at first. And then as you kind of gain more experience, it kind of slows down. Well, the same thing happens when you're jumping out of an airplane. And I didn't, 200 jumps might sound like a lot to some people, but I had guys on the team that, 3,000 plus jumps, or we worked with instructors that had 10, 12,000 plus jumps. Wow. Those guys know what they're doing. I just knew enough that I could be dangerous at the time. So, like I said, had a lot of great opportunities that were given to me by Special Forces. I learned a whole lot. And a lot of the business principles that I've used to grow my business, I learned from the military. There's good things that come with structure and training plans, and not just throwing someone to the wolves right away. You got to have that kind of that crawl, walk, run phase that we apply in the military. Now, I'm not having to teach privates or anything like that, and we never really had to teach like that in the Special Forces, but instruction was kind of a big thing that we did. So it's anytime you're training new employees, it's important because they need to be at a point to where they're empowered to make decisions, and without the knowledge on how to finish a job or, sell a contract, they are going to always just going to be calling you. And that's not efficient for you as a business owner. So kind of, applying some of those same principles and techniques that I learned in the military is, kind of, I think, made our business successful.
It seems like anybody that has been in the military, especially special forces, for whatever reason, you guys are a totally different breed of animal. It seems like you guys are able to transfer over to business skills or entrepreneurship very well because of because of your time in the military.
Yeah. So, speaking from a special forces perspective, and this is all open source stuff, I'm not giving away any national secrets or anything, but special forces, we conduct unconventional warfare, right? Well, for those of you listening, you're like, well, what's unconventional warfare? Well, unconventional warfare is going in and linking up with other foreign parties or, other entities and turning them into pretty much a force multiplier, right? You're taking a small team of 12 special forces guys, and you're training and you're getting a partner force that might be a battalion in size, a couple thousand guys, or it could be a couple hundred guys, to a place to where they can operate efficiently on their own. That's how you actually did a good job as Green Berets. If you can go in some place, you can put the processes in place, you can get them the coaching, the mentoring, the training that they need to, when you leave, everything doesn't fall apart, right? You have leadership in place. And so, I think what makes, from a special forces side, guys successful is a big part of that is networking and installing processes in a certain place. So, in the business world, especially a small business, you need clients. If you don't have clients, I don't care how good your process is, you're not going to pay the bills, right? So if you can get the clients and you can show them that you have a good process, you're going to have repeat customers, right? And they're going to tell people, about you. So, installing the processes, something that we did in the military all the time. We go in, do an assessment. Okay, what do we need to fix? All right, we're going to put these processes in. Okay. And then from there, you just, you kind of refine those processes until you can walk away from something. So, wow, that's an efficient machine that we created. So those things that I learned from special forces have been amazing to bring over to the business world. And I have a lot of buddies that were SF guys that have been very successful in the business world because they take that network and they take those processes and they apply them to the business world. And I promise you,
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, and let's clarify, the SF is not security forces, because I know, because I did security forces. And anytime, when you're single and, they're like, oh, you're SF, you're like, yeah, I'm SF. But security forces, not special forces. So just to clarify.
Right. And you guys actually have the bigger tab on your uniform.
Yeah. So it really stands out.
Yeah. You guys let people know.
And we'll wear the berets. So, we thought we were pretty cool.
Right. Which, I worked with some great security forces guys. You guys have some of your Raven teams and stuff like that, we did some cool stuff with. So, not taking away from, the other SF, but it is a little bit different mission set.
Mm-hmm.
But, whether it's Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, I've met a lot of military business owners that have taken, principles that they learned in the military and applied them to the business world and been very successful. That's not saying that, every military guy can get out and start a business and be successful, because there's a lot of other, things that make successful soldiers, the same as successful business owners. So, yep. One thing that, I think one of the questions that you had sent me over was like, hey, what is, one of the simple things that you've done that's, led you through success? And my thing is outwork people. I am a big believer in hard work. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You don't have to be the best looking guy in the room or the best looking girl or the smartest girl in the room. Hard work will put you far ahead. I was never the strongest guy on my team. I'm 5'10", 190 pounds, I could maybe bench 275 and squat, maybe 315 on a good day. Mm-hmm. I didn't look like an SF guy, right? And most people, when they see me, are like, "Well, oh, you're SF, cool, yeah, you were security for." I mean, you weren't that special forces. So,
easy.
So no, but what I always try to do is outwork people. And the other guys on my team, I'm telling you, they're 6'3", 275, squatting 500 pounds, and they can move mountains. And you're like, that's a man right there. That guy, that is what I think.
Kind of like Jocko. I'm sure you know Jocko.
Yeah. So, So my thing is just outwork people, whether that's in the military or whether you're a small business owner, or whether you are, a server or a bartender. You're going to find success when you kind of create it for yourself. And that first step, and one of the biggest principles that I believe in, is hard work.
Mhm.
I will take a hard worker over, a 20-pound brain that only wants to work like a 10 to 4 job and just punch in and punch out.
Yeah.
So that is kind of one of my, things that I've always tried to apply, whether military, small business, like, and Elon Musk, whether you're a fan of him or not, his big thing is like, you're not going to really accomplish anything but mediocrity. Can't remember how he phrased it exactly, but if you're working a 9 to 5,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not saying that you should just not go on vacations and not hang out with your family, but if you have a goal, you got to outwork people, because there's always someone that will outwork you.
I whether you're a fan of Grant Cardone or not, and I have differing opinions about him. Like sometimes I like him, but sometimes I'm not a big fan. But
Yeah.
one phrase he says that I love so much, and I actually write it down almost every day, is be obsessed or be average. Because I personally think, and I've said this on earlier podcasts of mine, is I think you're going to make two choices in this life, two sacrifices. You're either going to sacrifice time and effort, or you're going to sacrifice your dreams. And it's like, it's up to you which one that's going to be. And, we're human, right? So sometimes that ebbs and flows where you're at on that. But yeah, I agree. Hard work is important.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest principles that I try to strive with my team members, and even with myself. And then doing the small things correctly, right? I grew up playing sports. Sports has a big influence on kind of how I, carry myself in my personal life and my business life, because I'm very competitive, right? I want to win. And in business, I think if you're competitive and you want to win, that's another great thing that you can kind of bring with yourself, hard work and being competitive. So, just doing the small things correctly. So I tell my team all the time, hey, call people, pick up the phone when they call. It's something small, but you wouldn't imagine how many mortgage industry professionals don't pick up the phone.
The same thing in pest control. It's crazy.
Same thing with pest control. You're losing out on clients that need you, when you don't answer the phone. And that's one of my biggest things. I tell all of our team members, hey, if someone calls you, you answer the phone, you call them back. If they need an update, call them back. So, that doing the small thing, that's one of the small things that we can do, because like I said, sometimes it's hard for us to get a hold of other mortgage industry professionals when we need to get something done. It's like, I know you're at your desk. I know you're probably doing something. Okay, you're busy. That's fine. Call me back. Send me an email back, just have that communication.
Right.
So, that kind of ties into doing the small things great. And if you can do the small things great, then, the bigger picture usually comes together. And if not, that's where you get into your problem solving.
I'm glad you said that, because the theme of this podcast is, I'm a firm believer that the path to success is achieved by small and simple means. It's always consistently doing the small and simple things that leads to success. So I would like to highlight a little bit on this principle in just a moment. But first, I'd like to transition into how you got from special forces to where you are today, because you're kind of a jack of all trades. I think you're doing a little bit of insurance. You're an investor in real estate. You're a broker with loans. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my biggest thing is I look for opportunity. I knew, kind of referencing back to what I mentioned in a few minutes ago, was I knew that I didn't want to do 20 years in the military. The military, they give a great retirement. There's a lot of benefits of doing 20 years, but I didn't want to commit 20 years of my life to that, right? I wanted to gain the skills I needed, then move on. So it was about 2012, 2013 that, my father and I got together and said, hey, let's put together a plan for something that I can do when I get out of the military, right? Because I want to be my own boss and I want to kind of set my own success. So we started a small tax preparation firm, right? And that kind of grew into accounting, payroll.
I didn't realize that. So you and your dad started that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it grew from this small, 200 square foot office of, tax preparation of, I think, it grew very slowly at first. And then people caught on, hey, these guys over there, they know what they're talking about, and they don't charge us, an arm and a leg. So we're going to give them a chance. And that kind of word of mouth spread.
Little plug. I use you guys for everything, accounting, everything. It seems like so.
Yeah. Well, and we try to just apply the same principles across, like good customer service, and just if you protect the client, if you look out what's best for the client, even though you might not be able to generate revenue in a certain area, you're going to win a client for life. Right.
Mhm.
And that goes a long ways. And we're very relationship based. I'm sure you can walk in the office, you can go talk to Steven at any time about your profit and loss. Now, I'm not saying, and I'm sure you ask any accountant, they'll be like, oh yeah, we do the same thing. Well, yes, you probably do. But can you really get that access? Can you get them to, hey, answer
There's
the
a
phone?
reason why I switched to you guys. I can tell you
Right.
that right now.
Right. And not bad mouthing anyone else, because there's a lot of great accountants. There's a lot of great, industry professionals, but we just try to set ourselves apart from that.
Mhm.
And just go above and beyond on our service. So, we started out of that, and then we saw an opportunity like, hey, we can really save some people some money on insurance stuff. One, because they don't know what they're doing, or the agent that's writing them really doesn't understand commercial, right? Because coming from the accounting side, we had a lot of commercial clients, right?
Mm.
There are very few people in Springfield and just in the industry overall that know how to write commercial insurance. It's difficult for the average agent that just says, hey, I want to be an insurance guy. They, okay, I'll write your Honda Accord and your home, right? That's easy, right? Anyone can learn to do that. But to write commercial, you got to understand some business principles. You got to understand payroll numbers, 941s, 940, and you got to understand different risks and how they're classed from an insurance perspective. And you have to understand insurance principles to do that, which unfortunately, even though you pass a insurance exam, you don't learn anything. I can tell you this.
I know. I passed
my exam,
one.
yeah, when I passed my exam, I didn't know anything.
Uh-huh.
Right. And it's easy to stay in that same level of knowledge if all you do is you write that Honda Accord for your sister and her house. But we wanted to learn commercial. We wanted to be good at commercial, because that is something that not a lot of people do. And there's a lot of opportunity because people are overpaying on commercial insurance. Not everyone, but if you shop, and you should shop, whether it's insurance, whether it's mortgages, whether it's, you're buying a car, shop the services. I would love for you to just be like, hey, Andrew, you're my guy all day, every day. But guess what? That's not in your best interest, and you should shop. So, we kind of set up this insurance, broker shop. We're like, hey, we have all these carriers that specialize in commercial, and we're going to shop for our customers, and we're going to present them with the best coverages, because a lot of the small business owners didn't even know what they're paying, or didn't know what coverages they were getting.
Mm-hmm.
And the insurance agent that was, selling them this stuff didn't know either. He was just like, that's a $10,000 premium. Cool. I'm getting paid. Well, what coverages are going to the client, So we recognized that opportunity, and we added that on as a service, and that did great. That did really, really well. And then, we recently, said, okay, well, what's another thing that is lacking in this area? Well, the mortgage industry, right? So we realized an opportunity. I got licensed. Evan Doc Center got licensed as well, and we kind of added that on. We were learning at the time, and there's some growing pains at first, but once we hit stride, we were able to apply a lot of the same principles that we learned from being a tax preparer to being a mortgage loan officer, because there's a lot of people that don't understand taxes. Well, for all the self-employed people out there, guess what a loan officer should know? Taxes, right? Because you might have your Schedule C, you might be 1120S, you might be a weirdo with an 1120, right? How do you calculate income? How do you qualify someone? Oh, well, we have Bob, that one guy. He does all of our self-employed. Well, why not you, right? So it was a good fit to where we already understood the self-employed, and we had a lot of self-employed customers that were like, hey, I can't get approved over here. It's like, well, you just have to back the depreciation out and, back out half your mileage, and boom, you got income now. So we were able to take a lot of the, skills that we had in the other, financial industries and kind of apply them to the mortgage side. And that's kind of how we arrived at, doing mortgages. But it's been great so far. And I think we've built a lot of good relationships on it because of the service that we provide. And, in any business, your business, my business, Amazon, everyone makes mistakes, right? It's part of it. I could ask you right now, hey, Jake, when's the last time you made a mistake? in the business. You're probably gonna be like, yesterday. I'll be the same way.
All the time.
All the time. Right? And there's usually a client on the receiving end of that mistake. So, one of the things that we try to do is, hey, if we make a mistake, we try to make it right, whatever that means. I'm a big thing. Yeah. Hey, there's a lot of emotion involved with money all the time, right? And people get stressed out and they get real emotional because, especially in the mortgage industry, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's really a no mistake business. But you and I both know mistakes happen in any business, right? There's no such thing as a mistake-free business. It just doesn't happen. So one thing you can do to kind of provide better customer service is just make the mistake right. If it's something that we messed up, hey, we're going to make it right. So, we've kind of brought that in, and that's kind of grown that side really well. We started doing some things that, other places do as well, but we think that we do it pretty well. We have an in-house credit repair guy now. It doesn't cost the client anything. So for people that can't credit qualify, as long as they have buy-in, we will take them from, 570, 580, a 460 up to that 640, that 660 they need if they want. Because a lot of people just aren't educated on things.
Right.
And it's amazing when you get someone with a professional, a credit repair guy, a mortgage guy that can take them from where they're at and get them to where they need to be to buy a home or, even just buy a car. The amount of money that you will save yourself between having a 640 credit score and a 760 credit score is amazing over your lifetime. Depending on your purchases, your investments, it could be millions of dollars, right? And you just open yourself up to more opportunity because you increase your lending power. There's some guys out there, that say, hey, live the debt-free life, right? That's great. Yeah. If you don't know how to control, if you want to pay cash for everything, that's great. But if you are, kind of have that entrepreneurial spirit, you want to do more, you need loans. You really do. You need to leverage debt to create income, right? Yep. And one of the best things you can do is take care of your credit score. And so go ahead.
I think you and I had this conversation before, and I'm not going to mention names, but we all know who really preaches pay with cash. And right. I think that's a phenomenal principle, especially for the average American that is in massive credit card debt, car loans, and, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever. But you're right. If you're an entrepreneur, it is so important to leverage a bank's money or a private lender or whatever's money to get a higher ROI. Because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, as an investor, I know as having a few rental properties is that if I were to pay for cash, my ROI would drastically go down instead of leveraging, the bank's money and having a tenant pay the mortgage, right, and put cash flow in my pocket.
Absolutely. So, we try to provide some of that education to borrowers as well. Like, anyone that comes and sits down with me, I try to, I'll review their income with them. I'll tell them, okay, hey, what are your goals? Because if your goal is to buy more properties or, in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, well, then I'm going to shape our conversation a certain way. It's not just, hey, here's a loan, get out my door, I want to get paid, right? I try to turn it into a little bit of consulting as well. That way they don't feel like, they're just another, client. I want them to learn something out of the process.
Oh yeah. And that's something, not to toot your own horn or anything, but that's something you've done really well is add value. Cause even my conversations with you, I've learned a ton, just cause you know a different aspect than I know. And it's awesome. So I think what you guys are doing is great.
That's awesome. And I appreciate that. And we try to provide that expertise. So like for yourself, you're an investor. And if you know how someone's going to look at you from a lending perspective, that can shape what you need to do from your financial perspective, right? So you come to me like, hey, I want to have 50 rental properties in 10 years. Okay, how do I get there? Okay, well, here's what a lender's going to look at. And then you can kind of shape how you're making your investments to meet that goal, right? If I don't know your goal, I can't, consult you on it. And so I always have that, conversation with clients. Hey, what's your goal? What do you want? Tell me. And I'll find a way for you, whether I need to go find a new product, whatever the case might be. Let me know. If there's an opportunity, I will get you there. So that's one of the things that, we try to focus on here, with our team is help the client, consult them, give them value, right? And it doesn't need to be, Jake that wants, 500 rental homes in 5 years. It could be, an older lady that, hey, I have one rental and, I want to sell this one and move over here. What does that look like financially for me? Does it fit my retirement plans? I'm drawing Social Security in 10 years. How can I make this payment work? So, we try to cover a broad range of needs for clients. And if you take care, and it goes back to, if you take care of the client, you're going to get a client for life, and they're going to send you more business. And you
It
don't
always
have to
seems
get
like
out there.
wherever you add value or impact, money always seems to follow.
Right. And it's because you're providing a good product. And then that's my biggest thing, is just provide a good product. So that's a little bit how we kind of started and where we're at today.
Okay, cool. There's so much we can unpack in there. We might have to invite you back on the podcast. There's just so
Yeah.
much in there, and I just love talking to you. Let's backtrack a little bit, because I said I wanted to highlight on some small and simple things. Maybe before I do that, well, actually, let's do that, and then I'll ask another question. What are some small and simple things that you were doing on a daily basis that you feel has led to the success you guys have had so far? And maybe you highlight a little bit of your investing too, because we haven't even talked about that.
Right. So, I mean, I kind of touched on the small, simple things I do, but, outwork people, just hard work. I can't say it enough, is just, if you're up before your competition, and if you're there later than them, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do more than them. So, hard work isn't just putting in the hours, but it's staying on task, right? Because I can punch in at 4 a.m. and punch out at midnight. But if I accomplish nothing, if I watch YouTube all day, or, if I'm on Facebook all day, I'm not accomplishing everything. So I'm a big thing on, stay on task. Okay. We have morning meetings, which, just real quick, just, hey, what do we got today? All right. And that way everyone's on task, and we're moving through those tasks. So we're actually accomplishing something. But hard work ties into that, because to stay on task, you gotta be hardworking, and you have to move through and complete those processes. So that's kind of like the simple things: hard work, stay on task, that kind of go together. So that's kind of some of the simple, small things that I apply, and I try to have my other team members apply in their daily life.
That's awesome. I have a great mentor that always talked about laser focus. And it seems like, especially special forces guys seem to have that laser like focus, but then there's also a lot of really good business owners that have that. So I think that's perfect, is prioritizing what's important for you to accomplish that day that will lead to your goals, and having that laser like focus and work ethic on it. So awesome. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about, tell me a little bit about your investing, what kind of investing you've done. And then I'll ask you another question here.
Yeah. So I do a little bit of everything, and it doesn't really matter what the investment is. If I see an opportunity, I'm a numbers guy, right? We talked a lot about, hey, what's this property? What's this property? What, how can I generate the most ROI? So I don't care if that's, flipping houses, or that's, long-term rentals. I try to do an analysis of the numbers. Okay, what is my return? What's my annualized return? And then what's my risk, right? Because a long-term rental is probably a lot less risky than me going into a flip, depending on it. I don't like to get into investments. I play poker the same way, right? I'm a very conservative investor, right? And you can be conservative if you know your numbers and how to calculate your ROI. So whether that's flipping, I try to find deals where I can buy the home sight unseen. I know that it's going to sell, even if I have to knock the whole thing down and rebuild it. And I'm still going to either break even or make a little bit of money. So in this market, you were like, yeah, well, I do that all day, every day, if I could find properties like that. Well, the tough part is finding properties, right? So, you can't just always say, oh yeah, well, I'm only going to find a deal where I don't have any risk, because even if I have to knock it down, so I just wait. Sometimes it comes in floods. Sometimes, it's one property, a year or something like that. But I'm opportunity driven. So, whether that's, having a long-term rental, flipping, or whatever the investment might be, it's always opportunity driven. And okay, what's my ROI? What's my risk? Right. So that's just a little bit of kind of how I base my investing decisions. I would never say no to an idea without doing a complete analysis on it and saying, okay, well, this is a little different than what everyone else is doing, but there's potential, and there's a plan, and there's an exit strategy. So that's
Just
a
out
little
of curiosity, what's your minimum criteria for maybe your cash on cash return, or whatever ROI you're using?
So it depends on the risk, right? If I am buying a property that, just speaking on the real estate side, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. If I'm buying a property that I know doesn't need very much, remodel, it doesn't have a lot of rehab costs, then I'll take a lower return, right? Because I know that there's less work. If I have a lot of work in something and money might be out 45, 60 days, I want a higher return. There's more risk to it. If I said, well, that might be full of mold, so I need a higher return because I might need to bring in someone to remediate all that mold. So I can't really tell you what I got to make 10% every time, Jake, because that would limit me in my investment choices. So I always try to assess the risk of the investment I'm getting in versus the return on it. So, it can be a broad range, because super risky things I want a higher return on, but I try to stay away from super risky. So
I mean, that might change my mindset a little bit, because I'm always at minimum 10% return. That's always my minimum.
Right. But if you can get a 5% return, annualized in 2 weeks, why would you not take that if it's secure?
True.
Right.
That's true.
Because if you're always looking for that big score, you're going to limit the income you can generate over the year. I like things long term, 5 years, 10 years. It doesn't make sense for me to get into something where I could lose everything, right? If I can just slowly build, through investments, then I can kind of accomplish that goal in a conservative way without losing my money.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that. Now I'm gonna switch gears again on you.
Yeah.
So, you've had a lot of life experience, and I think you're around the same age as me. I think you're young, relatively young. And so, with all the experiences you've had, what has been one of the toughest things that you've gone through, and how did you overcome it, if you're willing to share?
Yeah. So, usually when guys think military, they think, okay, tough things, being on the battlefield, losing friends, stuff like that. Those are tough experiences, and they really are. And there's a lot of, friends that I've had that have, went through some really, terrible experiences through that. And they were valorous. I don't want to really focus on that today. I want to focus on maybe something that someone else can apply in their life, right? And one of the most difficult things that I experienced in the military was just how to overcome difficult leaders, right? I had some great leaders in the military, right? They taught me a whole lot of things. Then I also had some leaders that I didn't share their mission view or how we were going to accomplish that mission. In my time in Special Forces, a big thing is planning, right? That's kind of what differentiates us from Navy SEALs, is we plan. We have this very intense planning, because when you're going into a place with 12 guys that you could be going against 2,000 guys, you have to plan really well, or you could put yourself in a bad spot to where you lose your life, right? And so planning is very important. And so most of my conflict with these difficult leaders were in planning, right? Because obviously I always had the best idea, right? So or someone else had a better idea. And it's not to say that like, oh, well, they didn't choose my idea, so I didn't get along. But there's some leaders that didn't coach, didn't mentor, that, didn't show someone, but expected, right? So my big thing with my team members is, hey, if I didn't show you how to do something, if you don't know how to do something, you don't have to apologize for that. Someone should teach you things, right? And that overall responsibility falls back on the leader. Well, okay, I'm the leader in some things, and you have managers that are the leaders in other things. So, overcoming those difficult leaders and learning to work with them, not against them, to accomplish the mission, even though I didn't maybe support the way that we were doing it, or I didn't like how they were as a human being. Because in the military, some guys are they're rude, and they don't know how to interact, socialize, right? And especially you put someone that outranks you. The military is big on rank and structure. That can make your life miserable if you are underneath that rank, right? Even though you might have more common sense than them, you might have to be smarter than them, you still have to do what they say, because at the end of the day, they can be like, nope, I outrank you, you have to do it. So that was one of my biggest challenges, was overcoming leaders that I didn't see eye to eye with, right? And still being able to work with them to overcome the mission. And I'll just tell you, just because you don't get along with your boss, he may be a great guy, he may be a terrible guy, that shouldn't take away from accomplishing your mission, right? So for people that aren't small business owners, or maybe you have a business partner that you don't always see eye to eye, find a way to where you can leverage their abilities and leverage your abilities to accomplish the mission. So, that's kind of one of the things. That was probably one of my biggest struggles, is learning how to overcome those kind of interpersonal relationships with difficult leaders. So when I was the leader, it's easy because, I try not to be, well, not necessarily. And I try not to be like, well, I'm in charge. You have to be. Right?
Yeah.
I want people to be empowered. Like it goes back to what I was saying. I want people to be empowered. I want people to be able to make a decision on their own.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of how I apply that in the business world.
Anybody listening to this, it's like, no wonder this kid is doing good in his endeavors. I mean, just the experiences that you've had have helped shape you into the businessman you are. So I think it's awesome hearing some of this that I didn't know before. So
I appreciate that, Jake.
If you were to, I know we've talked about you kind of narrow things down to two principles that you would say: work ethic and kind of, I'm using a different term, laser-like focus. But if you could give somebody advice that wanted to get started in being an entrepreneur or a business owner, what would be some practical advice you'd give them?
Find a good coach or mentor. Find someone that can help you, that is not just looking to take from you, right? So whether that be a good accountant, whether that be a family friend, find someone that, knows maybe not everything, but enough to get you started, right? Find someone that has done it before and can give you some feedback. You might have better ideas than that person, but they're going to give you, real world feedback, because it's easy to dream, but it's hard to do, right? So, a lot of these, find people that have done it before, right? That maybe are more experienced than you. Doesn't mean they did it correctly. Maybe they went out of business or something, but they probably can give you a good way to get started. But don't limit yourself to one person, right? Don't always put all your trust into one person. Find multiple people. I'm always looking for people that have done it differently or done it better. Like a lot of, my reading and researching is, I just try to go to the ends of Google and find people that have done things differently than what I'm doing and how it affected their business and how it grew their business, right? Here in the Midwest, I would say we're maybe a little bit behind times on certain business strategies like digital marketing. You guys are doing a great job of that. I saw your guys' ads pop up on digital marketing. There's not every small business is doing that. And for the cost of doing it, it's really not that costly. And you're generating more exposure. Maybe you're not generating sales right away, but guess what? When you go to a house or you're driving around and someone's like, oh, I saw their ad on Facebook. They must be a big company. They must really know what they're doing. And it gives you kind of a reputation. And then people are like, oh, 417 Pest Solutions. I need to call them. Because I saw, or I punched in Google, like, insect problems. And 417 Pest Solution was, because they paid for a spot on Google. People might not realize they're viewing that stuff, but they are. So, one of my biggest, pieces of advice I can give people is find someone that can, coach you and mentor you and show you kind of other ideas. Doesn't mean you need to jump on every single idea. I'm full of great ideas, but I can't take them all. You shouldn't jump on all of them, because you need to be able to assess an idea and then be able to implement that or complete that. So that would be my biggest things. Find someone that can help you, that has done it before, if you're doing something that you've never done before.
Yeah. And I like what you said, because sometimes I think when you talk about having a mentor, we always think of a physical person. That could be a podcast. That could be an audio book. It could be reading books. I know me personally, I have a ton of mentors. Matter of fact, whether you know it or not, you're one of my mentors. Your brother, he's my accountant. He's one of my mentors. I've got tons of mentors and tons of books back here on my shelf that, are my mentors. So I think that's fantastic advice. If you could go back to the high school age what would be some advice you'd give yourself, or what would you do differently?
Man, going back to my high school self, I would say get into finance earlier on. There's a lot of opportunity. I have no complaints about where I am today. I know that all those past experiences kind of shaped the person who I am today, whether it's personally or in business. So I'm thankful for that. But I wish I would have got started a little bit earlier. I am young, but I would have liked to have a little bit more industry experience at this point. So that's really the only thing. I can't complain about any of the experience. I got to serve along some great guys. I had some experiences that less, most people will never even know about, or can't even imagine. So,
Right.
I'm very thankful for that, and who that's made me. But yeah, I guess that would be the advice that I give.
Get into finances sooner.
Yeah.
It's funny. When I was younger, I liked math, and then I started just hating math for whatever reason. But then when you started putting a dollar sign in front of it, I started liking it again.
Yeah.
So we're going to go segue into the next segment of the podcast, and that's we call it the final three, where we'll ask the last three questions that we ask all our guests. So the number one question is most recent book you've read and one thing you've learned from it.
So, man, I don't remember the exact name, but it was a real estate investing book. It was by Aaron. I don't even remember his last name now that you got me on the spot. But it was over kind of a different method to the Burr method. And I'm sure everyone's heard about the Burr method and everything like that. And it's super easy and you can make millions. Well, he had a little bit different take on it of, evaluating the risk portion of it. So, some of the things that I've learned that, I kind of shared earlier came from that book. Okay. You don't always have to make that big return, right? It's all about looking at a long term. So that was one of the most recent books that I've read and that I learned from. I do, it's not really reading a book, but I am up on the MLS a lot. I like to see what's happening in the market because I am involved in those transactions. So I want to be able to give feedback to the customer, give feedback to that realtor.
Goes back to add more value.
As far as adding more value. Hey, because they might know what it is from a market valuation standpoint, but okay, well, what will this appraise for? What are we looking at, on that? So I like to know what's happening in the local market. That way I can advise, and consult clients and with other business professionals as well.
It seems like going back to the small and simple things that lead to success. I think from talking with you, I found three principles that it seems like you live your life by that has helped you to achieve the success you've had. Outwork the other people, right? Outwork, right. Be competitive, laser focus.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one is add value.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. Which hopefully I didn't steal your thunder. That's actually going into my second question is what's one principle you strive to live your life by?
It goes back to the hard work. If I had to put number one, it's hard work. You can have the laser-like focus or the stay on task or however you want, and you can add value. But if you're not outworking someone, someone else is going to beat you. And like I said, I'm competitive. I want to win, so I'm going to outwork whoever I can.
That's awesome. I love it. I knew I liked you. Last question. What is one of the greatest pieces of advice you've been given?
So probably the best piece of professional advice. I've had some great religious advice. I've had some great marriage advice. But since we're kind of on the business topic, the best piece of business advice that I've been given is look out for yourself. And this is only in business, right? If this is marriage advice, don't take that. That's not good advice. But I had a great leader in the military that told me, hey, in your professional career, make sure you're looking out for yourself because you're the only one that knows what's best for you. And that's not 100% correct. That's just how he put it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't know what's best for you, but you do. You are the only person that can really look out for yourself because someone is always motivated, has other motivations, right? For advice they're giving you. Not always, but you have to be careful with who's looking out for you, right? So be able to learn how to assess something, how to analyze, whether it's a new job or a new investment opportunity, right? Be able to know. And I think we a lot of our phone calls are like, well, how do you get to that number, right? How do you get to that number? So I explained it to you, right? And I said, hey, here's how you do the math on it. Now you can do it yourself. Right now, I love talking to you late at night, but now you can look at something and you can say, that's a good deal, right? Mm-hmm. So, look out for yourself, right? And make the decision that's best for you. Because I've had bosses, oh, you should take this job, right? It'd be good for you in this, development. Was it? Maybe not. So that was probably one of the best pieces of advice is make sure you look out for yourself in the business world because nobody else is going to be doing that as good as you are. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean, shut yourself off from advice or anything like that, but evaluate, assess, of what is being presented to you. What do these numbers make sense? Does this job make sense? Does this opportunity make sense? So that would probably be, the best business piece of advice that I've ever gotten.
Awesome. So Andrew, where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can, if you want a mortgage, you can go to www.sgnloans.com. I'm not super active on social media. I know a lot of people think that networking is all social media. It's not. So, you can swing by my office and say hi. We're located on Sunshine and Jefferson, right in the middle of Springfield. Just pop in. You can, if you want to talk about mortgages or insurance or whatever it might be, I try to make myself available as much as possible.
Perfect. And we'll put those links in the description. So if anybody wants to check you out, they can.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, man. This was awesome.
I appreciate it, Jake.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.